Test, test, test. There we go. Test, test.
Testing, testing. That was yours, Lou, right? Open, ready to go. I'll tee you up when you're here. These eyes. Oh my god. Testing, testing. How's audio, guys? Good? Nope, it's not. I'm going to keep talking until you tell me it's good. I am saying words. La, 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 la. These are not words anymore. Say something. How's this? Better. Better. Okay. Okay. I'll pull you up. You're right. I want to introduce you all.
Thank you.
You're going to be good to go. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Always pull it tight. Everybody should be coming. More for audience members, not like this already. I say run it, everything, and then not long enough, is it? Yeah, yeah. This one should be this. We'll get the long one if we were. Just try it.
Oh, move the whole thing?
You want a little bit of leeway here in case you need to go to this side, but
Yeah.
other than that, don't worry about it too much.
And do you want this set up?
Good. I think it's good.
Do you want the pointer?
Oh, I don't need it, but yeah.
Oh, well, you got to take the thing.
Where is it? I'll get her.
Yeah, it's like, there's
Just
a
straight
little
up?
button. Tactile.
You don't want to lose it during your.
Except somebody gave away our dongle.
Not good. It should.
I bet it was in the presenter last week.
Time for a Bluetooth one.
Well, that's useless now.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll get it. All right, I'm
Good.
starting a little bit. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Houston Oasis, home to Houston's secular community. We have a great gathering today. Thanks for coming in. We're going to have a main talk by Jenni Gillespie. I can't speak today. She's a science educator who will be speaking about why the Atlantic Ocean lacks trenches, earthquakes, and volcanoes of the Pacific. Very interesting. We'll have a community moment by Lou titled A Whale of a Tale, and we're going to start you off with two musicians, Joseph Crump and Colby Beserra. They have both been here before. They play wonderfully. I'm going to keep talking while they walk towards their instruments. Today is potluck today, so if this is your first time, we will be meeting inside the room for food. Some folks have already brought some food. I see that. Thank you very much. And if you want to order food and bring it in, that's great too. You can DoorDash. You will find the Montrose Center. But let's turn it over to Joseph and Colby. Morning, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. We're gonna do a mix of originals and covers. This is one I wrote on the day after election night.
I was
Jumping
deactivating my
right into
social
it.
I was deactivating my social media accounts while you were writing.
So, and I guess just kind of that moment when you're kind of wondering where you fit into all of it. So it's called Where You Belong. Yesterday's always gone. The memory lingers on. You think you know right from wrong. You think you found a place where you belong. Look at you so confused. The world is upside down. And now that you're disappeared, corruption wears the crown. And you thought you understood the darkness and the light. And you didn't think you lose all your faith in everyone tonight. And how do you reconcile the conflict in your heart? You try to maintain your smile. Your soul is torn apart. And you didn't understand the darkness and the light. And you didn't think you could lose all your faith in everyone tonight. Thank you.
This one. There's a wonderful singer-songwriter named Brandy Clark. She had a very interesting journey in Nashville, not fitting the mold of Nashville, and you all know what I mean. Wrote some incredible songs for people like Miranda Lambert, and then has done two amazing solo albums. Just beautiful mix of classic country and new ideas. This song is called Bigger Boat. On the original, you'll hear Randy Newman singing as well.
Should I try and do a Randy Newman impression?
Don't do it.
No.
We're either all the way left or all the way right. The only way we meet in the middle is to fight. The rich get richer, poor get a little more broke. We gonna need a bigger boat. Floods down south, the fires out west. You turn on the news, it scares you to death. Give me a hammer, somebody hold my coat. We gonna need a bigger boat. We spilled wine can't eat this, you can't eat that. Is there anything that ain't giving cancer to rats? The safest thing in the air is a cigarette smoke. We gonna need what? A bigger boat. Go ahead, Bill. We spilled wine all over the map, and we keep waiting on the wind to blow. Can't agree on who should be captain. So we keep waiting this thing afloat. We're springing a leak, we're coming apart. We're on the Titanic, we think it's the ark. Sharks in the water, got me thinking about a movie quote. We gonna need a bigger boat. We gonna need a bigger boat.
Thank you, Joseph and Colby. Now that y'all are awake, hi, I'm Tim. I'm the treasurer of Houston Oasis. To my right, you may notice our core values right over here. I want to point out one to you specifically today, though. That is, reality is known through reason. Just as an example, vaccines are real. Science is real. Vaccines teach your body how to, they kind of train your body like an AI would be trained, right? If that's the only thing you know. How to fight a disease. So, and they work. They saved a lot of lives over the years. So for those at home who have never heard of vaccines. We're going to hear from Lou in a second. Actually, right now, he will be regaling us with a whale of a tale. Lou, come on up. Let's give him a hand, guys.
Morning. That is a minke whale. And in last Sunday's Houston Chronicle was a story about a particular minke whale. So I'm going to read the article to you. They're toothed whales, unlike humpbacks, which are baleen whales. But they're pretty friendly. Okay. The title of the article is, Here's a Whale of a Tale from Frozen North. This takes place in Seldovia, Alaska. It sits somewhere near the top of the world. It's a nanoscopic village on the North Pacific, population 225. Tons of fishing boats, a lot of cold, icy Kachimak Bay water. A few days ago, a local spotted something huge stranded on the beach. It was a minke whale, about the same length as a mid-sized Toyota. The whale was struggling, thrashing around and panting. The whale was fighting to breathe. The passerby ran for help. When a live whale finds itself stuck on a beach, you don't have a lot of time, maybe 20 minutes tops. Dehydration is often what kills the whale, or the whale might drown because its airway faces the tide. Often, it's suffocation that kills a stranded whale. Remember when you were a kid and you swam in the pool all day? Remember how, when you got out of the pool, your whole body felt heavy? That's because for hours, water supported your body weight while all your friends played Marco Polo, thereby traumatizing some unfortunate child, so that this child would be receiving therapy for next, say, 30 or 40 years of his or her respective adulthood. Not that I would know anything about this. So anyway, after being buoyant all day, your little kid muscles weren't used to supporting your weight. Once you got out of the pool, your body felt heavy. Likewise, whales spend a lifetime in the water. Their bodies are not built to handle their own weight. When a whale lies on the beach, gravity crushes its huge frame, making it almost impossible to breathe. The whale in Seldovia was gasping, with roughly 3 tons sitting on its lungs. It was dehydrating in the sun. It wouldn't be long before the whale would just give up and die. Each year, about 2,000 whales strand themselves on beaches and die. That number is rising. Nobody knows why. Even fewer seem to care. Someone in the village contacted Stephen Payton, the environmental coordinator. In his 10-year career, he had never encountered a live beached whale. You can guess why they weren't live. He wasn't sure what to expect when a neighbor offered him a ride on a four-wheeler. It was really scratched up, Payton said. You could tell it had probably been rolling around on the rocks. When he got to the beach, he had likely expected to find a dead whale. What he found, however, was not a deceased cetaceous creature. When Payton arrived at the shore, there was a crowd of locals who had formed a bucket brigade. They were hauling seawater from the Pacific using 5-gallon buckets, dousing the whale. The villagers had wrapped the whale in wet towels to protect it from sun exposure. Pretty neat people, huh? They did not leave the whale's side. 20 minutes turned into an hour. 1 hour turned into 6. After a full day of caring for the animal, the tide arrived. The whale reoriented itself and swam into the water, and the crowd cheered. But the whale, excuse me, but the whale did not swim off into the deep. The whale stayed in local waters for days, surfacing frequently and spouting at local villagers, like it was saying, thank you. Now, think of all the times you honestly believed you weren't going to make it. Try to remember the individuals who appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, who stood beside you during hard times, even when odds were not in your favor. Remember those people? Good. Now go to that person and someone else today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. You had me in the beginning. Thank you for making that a happy ending. We're going to go ahead and have a quick coffee break before we return for our main talk by Jenni. We'll see you here in 10 minutes. All right, everybody? Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and just swap this one down. Yeah.
Do you need your?
I'll get all that. Is that their actual?
Yeah,
Dirt bags.
That is their actual sports team.
I love it. Say goodbye.
Yeah, tell people. I was more of a casual
Yes. Why don't you come on during, I'll call you on during the show. We don't have a clicker because somebody walked off without a receipt.
Oh, no.
Can you use?
I can just do it here.
Okay.
Yeah, and since I have to be right here to talk anyway, yeah. Okay, is that, yeah, that's good, that's good. Yeah, okay, all right.
I'll introduce you. You're good to go. we normally do? Come back with one more song? How much time do we? I don't know how long her talk is, but we're on time. So. Can we do one more song? Yeah, where'd they go? Are they here?
You're the MC.
I normally we'll do like 4 songs if we don't need to spill. 2 is usually at the end, right? So that way they can run off 2 songs. They don't have to like run back and forth. Otherwise it'd be like 1 and then 1.
What do you want to do?
It was last week. I don't remember. It was last week. I wasn't here. What did they do?
Last week it was 2 at the beginning.
Do you like the song in the middle kind of thing?
Huh?
Do you like song in the middle?
I'm not the MC.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're going to, because we're going to get a couple more people in, let's just go ahead and run right into the talk, QA. I'm going to do announcements and then 2 songs. All right. Welcome back, everybody, from your coffee break. We're going to jump right into our main talk today. Jenni Gillespie will be giving a talk on the Atlantic Rim. Where's all the action? Let's all give Jenni a big round of applause.
Thank you. The Atlantic Rim, earthquakes, volcanoes, deep trenches from which monsters. That's not the Atlantic Rim, is it? That's the Pacific Rim, and much more typical of what happens when tectonic plates meet. So in order to figure out why the Atlantic is not working the same way, we're going to take a step back, look at tectonic plate theory, what happens, how tectonic plates move and what happens when they interact, how we figured that out, and then we'll see how all this applies to the Atlantic Ocean. 1872, the HMS Challenger set off on a scientific expedition to investigate deep sea environments, collect data on oceanographic conditions, marine life, and the physical and chemical properties of water. The expedition took 3.5 years, from December 21st, 1872 to May 24th, 1876. And among all their other investigations, they measured the depth of the ocean 360 times as they traveled around the world, averaging about every 230 miles or 370 kilometers. They had a rope that was with a weight on the end that was 3 miles long. Where you store 3 miles of rope on a ship like this, I don't know. But they found parts of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and the Mariana Trench, these extreme areas. And in honor of their finding of part of the Mariana Trench, the deepest section, which was not what they found, the rope wasn't long enough anyway, is called the Challenger Deep. In spite of this research, which was published, but at the time not widely distributed, most people and even scientists thought the abyssal floor was basically featureless and the continent's layout fixed well into the 20th century. One person who questioned this was Alfred Wegener. He was a German meteorologist, a polar explorer, a geologist, a climatologist, a geophysicist, and he noted, as many others had before him, that Africa and South America could fit together, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. But he went further. He analyzed rock, geologic structures, fossils, and living animals. And he found that rock types and stratification matched across continental boundaries, that fossils on multiple continents were the same, and that living plants and animals were more closely related than you would expect if they had evolved on separate continents. And these are some examples, and I can't read them from here, so I'll let you look at the specifics. But just examples of plants and animals, the Glossoptera and freshwater mosasaur and land animals that are found across multiple continents. In 1912, he proposed a theory he called continental drift, that the continents were on separate sections of crust and that they could and did move. Unfortunately, for this proposal, he didn't have a process by which the continents could move. How could they shift position? And so the scientific community pretty much dismissed his findings. Fast forward 30 years. During World War II, Captain Harry Hess delivered supplies around the Pacific, and he had access to a new technology, sonar. Its purpose was to find enemy submarines, but he realized, having been trained in geology, that if he just left it on, he could get profiles of the ocean floor as he sailed over. And he discovered, much to his surprise, that the seafloor wasn't flat. There were mountains, underwater volcanoes, and deep trenches. After the war, he kept working on ocean floor topology. And meanwhile, Marie Tharp, working under Bruce Heason, made the first scientific map of the Atlantic Ocean seabed, taking data from sonar readings and hand drawing the contours of the floor. Her work revealed the Mid-Atlantic Ridge at 10,000 miles long, 16,000 kilometers, the longest mountain range in the world. At least in the beginning, Bruce Heason was very skeptical and is reported to have called her emerging ideas girly talk. But he now gets partial, associated credit, so I guess at some point he came around. Later on, core samples of rocks from various seafloor areas revealed a couple of pieces of supporting evidence. One was that the rocks near the mid-ocean ridges, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and other ocean ridges, were younger than the rocks farther away, and they became progressively older, and at the edges, the continental boundaries and seafloor boundaries, the rocks are about 180 million years old. A couple of other things. The other major find was called paleomagnetism, old magnetism. And one of those, as they took these core samples, they could age them using radioactive decay and other measures. But they also found, moving outward from the regions, mirror image patterns of reversing magnetic polarity. So in this illustration, the colored bands are what we would call normal magnetic polarity, where the north magnetic pole is in the Arctic and the south magnetic pole is in the Antarctic. But periodically, that has switched. And so the white bands are when the north magnetic pole is in the Antarctic and the south magnetic pole is in the Arctic. And these parallel bands and the association with the same ages and being confirmed both in the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian Oceans gave that validation that it wasn't just in one area. In 1962, Harry Hess presented a paper detailing the process of seafloor spreading, where from these volcanically active ocean ridges. And this concept could provide a way that the continents could move. But this process had its own problems. if the seafloor was spreading, why wasn't the crust of the Earth getting bigger? And the answer turned out to be subduction, and that took several investigations to unearth, as it were. The second part of paleomagnetism was this. The Earth has a magnetic field similar to a bar magnet. And what this means is that scientists can calculate the angle of the magnetic field at any place on the Earth. And so when you take the age of rocks, which we have several ways of calculating, and the angle of the magnetic field in magnetic rocks, igneous rocks that had cooled millions of years ago, and if they move that continental plate to where that magnetic field aligns, and you get several magnetic plates and move them around, or the angles from magnetic minerals in different plates, they tended to confirm what Alfred Wegener had predicted, that the continents moved. All right. So how does this all happen? As you know, the Earth has several layers. The crust that we live on, the mantle made up of mostly melted rock between 500 and 3,700 degrees Celsius, or 3,300 to 7,700 degrees Fahrenheit, increasing in temperature as you go in depth. The outer core between 4,000 and 6,000 degrees Celsius, or 8,200 to 10,800 degrees Fahrenheit, and the inner core at 7,000 degrees Celsius, or 12,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The two outer layers are primarily what power tectonic plate movements. The liquid mantle has convection currents, like a pot of boiling water or something thicker, where the hot water heated at the bottom, in this case by the outer core, rises. If it rises all the way up to the crust, it spreads sideways, cools, and drops down. In a boiling pot, one cycle might take a second. In the mantle, one cycle can take millions of years, tens of millions of years. So this is a slow process. So the sections of crust, the tectonic plates, are pushed and pulled along in part by these convection currents. But it turns out that the mantle's not viscous enough to push or pull, drag the tectonic plates on its own. There are several other forces that come into play. So with this illustration, when two tectonic plates meet, several things can happen. They can transform, the one on the left rubbing side by side, which doesn't power them, but is one of the ways they interact. This is the San Andreas Fault in California. They can diverge, like at the mid-ocean ridge, where magma comes up and it pushes the older magma away from the ridge. And this is one of the forces. It's called ridge push. And that push does help power the ocean crust moving away from the ridge. And lastly, they can converge. They can move together. And when they converge, two things can happen. So we're going to skip to the next one. One is if you get two plates of the same density, two continental plates, which are primarily granitic, or two ocean plates, which are primarily basaltic, which is denser, they will crunch together like pushing a blanket or something, a weighted blanket, and create mountains. Not volcanoes, not much in the way of earthquakes, but the Himalayas and to a certain extent the Rockies are this kind of process. You get uplift and mountain buildings. But if you get two different plates, the typical reaction is this: subduction. So one plate, the denser plate, the oceanic lithosphere, shown here, is denser. That rock is generally basalt or gabbro, which is very dense rock. It's old, it's cold, It's been compressed under a mile or two of water for 180 million years. It's ready to sink into the mantle. As it does, it pulls the rock behind it. That rock, that slab is pretty much all attached, so it pulls the rock behind it down into the mantle, and this is called slab pull. And then currents develop in the mantle that serve to suck the slab down even more, and that's called mantle suction. So these four processes, the convection currents, the ridge push, the slab pull, and the mantle suction, all are one set of powering forces behind tectonic plate movement. So how do we get trenches and earthquakes and volcanoes out of this? If you see that lower arrow in the trench, as the lithosphere descends, we know it pulls the rock behind it. It also pulls the rock on the face of the continental plate. It pulls that down together, and that's a lot of what helps create that trench. Then as it slides under, you get accretion. The top layers of sediment and rock can be scraped onto the continental plate, and you see that as an accretionary prism. As it goes down, it's scraping, it's pushing into and scraping against the continental plate. And so you get horizontal forces pushing, and the continental plate will end up being like a spring that's compressed and compressed and compressed, and then will pop back into release that pressure. And that's one kind of earthquake. Those ones that are primarily compressional are called megathrust earthquakes. They're the ones we see a lot in Alaska, those great big earthquakes, or like Japan in 2011, or Sumatra in 2004, and Alaska in 1964, those great big 9-point-something earthquakes. But you also get frictional earthquakes. So as those plates scrape against each other, they can catch, just like if you drag your shoe along the floor, especially a sneaker, and you press down and you drag it, it skips along the floor. And that's what these rock sections can do against each other. So we have the trench, we've got our earthquakes, volcanoes. When that lithosphere gets 100 to 150 kilometers deep, 64 to 95 miles, the temperature and pressure break down the crystal structure, and volatiles are released, water, carbon dioxide, and they rise up into that mantle ridge above the lithosphere. I used to think it was the rock itself that melted, but it's not melting yet. But that water lowers the melting temperature of that mantle wedge above. So it melts and makes this very lightweight, for lava, lightweight magma. And it's what oozes up and creates the volcanic arc at some distance from the wedge. And the distance depends on the angle of subduction. How much horizontal distance does it take for that rock to get 100 kilometers deep? So that's subduction, one of those, that's all that seismic activity. So let's see. All right, so here we have one illustration of the 14 major plates, and you see a lot of that subduction around the Ring of Fire. All those little red dots are earthquakes, but we don't see that around the Atlantic. We don't even see the boundary between, for example, the North American plate and the Atlantic seabed, because something else is happening here that's not the typical process. It's not transforming, it's not subducting, it's not building mountains. So we're going to hop back to Pangea a few million years and see how the Atlantic Ocean was formed, leading to why we don't have that activity. 450 million years ago, some of the continental pieces start hitting together. Eurasia and North America in the northern hemisphere, South America, Africa, Antarctica, India, and Australia in the southern hemisphere, forming Gondwana, North America and Eurasia forming Laurasia. And then about 335 million years ago, this is the Carboniferous, when all that carbon's being put down, those two masses came together to form Pangea. And you see three ocean names. In this particular map, off to the right, there are some island chains. And so we see three different ocean names, but it was primarily one big ocean. And it was stable like this for about 50 million years. And centrally located in there, where you see some of this yellow in these lines, was a big mountain range, or several mountain ranges. And then, about 200 million years ago, it's the end of the Triassic, and this heat builds up under this section of Pangea. We don't know exactly why, but it began this 600,000-year era of volcanic eruptions and earthquakes and splitting and pulling of these two sections apart, primarily between North America and Eastern North America and Western Africa. And as they split, the Tethys Sea started filling in that area. It's sometimes called the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province. So it's one of the biggest volcanic events in the history of the Earth. And it may be one of the causes of the Jurassic extinction, because along with the lava, these volcanoes, the volcanic eruptions release sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and mercury into the atmosphere. So you get acid rain, the ozone layer starts breaking down, and the oceans become acidified. And in that Triassic extinction, about half of all creatures, both marine and terrestrial, died off. So as these things separated, that massive mountain range got broken up, and the Scandinavian mountains and the Scottish Highlands cruised eastward along with the Eurasian continental plate, whereas the Watkin Range and the Appalachians shifted westward with North America on the North American plate. And the Atlas Mountains in Morocco were moved westward, more or less, with Africa. And the water from that Tethys Ocean came to fill this in. So take a little look. Hopefully this will work. So as you watch this, if you look at the little triangle way on the left, that is the Pacific plate growing. You see North America separating from Africa, which is still connected to South America, but India, Antarctica, and Australia start breaking off. About 20 million years later, South America splits off, and whoops, I did not mean to do that. And I did not mean to do that. Let me see if I can go back. Sorry. Okay, we'll see. Go again. So as these came, the ridge, that dividing line, is where the magma is coming out. And this magma was very fluid, like the magma that comes out of Hawaiian volcanoes, a light basaltic lava. And it ended up covering 10 million square kilometers, almost 4 million square miles, an area larger than the United States. And that is the floor covering we find on the Atlantic today. Okay, so on this map, you can see that mid-Atlantic ridge, this winding mountain range, and the rift grew, and the magma comes out of that ridge. There are some volcanoes along there, and it's mostly gabbro and basalt, which are those dense rocks, and some serpentine, and that's what formed that new seafloor. Just to get a look at the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, this is in Iceland where it's above the water, but you can see it's long strings of ridges and then a kind of a depression in the middle, which is where most of that magma comes close to the surface and starts pushing away. So the Atlantic Ocean has been growing ever since and continues to grow at the geologically speedy pace of 1/2 to 4 inches, 1 to 10 centimeters a year, but not evenly all around. So the reason, let's look at what's happening and think about this. So that new seafloor is coming up, but instead of either causing mountains with the granitic continental plates on both sides or subducting, it's pushing those continental plates in front of it as that magma comes up and the Atlantic lithosphere, the floor of the Atlantic grows. Those continental plates are being pushed away. And what would be a subduction or what would be a converging border between the Atlantic seafloor plate and these continental plates becomes a passive border because they're moving together, but they're all moving differently. So the North American plate and its Atlantic partner are sliding westward at about 9/10 of an inch a year and rotating counterclockwise. The South American plate is moving westward and slightly northward at about 1.2 inches a year, 3 centimeters, and interacting with these other plates around it, the Caribbean plate in orange, the Cocos plate in blue, the Nazca plate, which is labeled, and then down near the bottom, the Scotia plate and the Antarctic plate. So that's got a busy set of borders. The Eurasian plate is moving, as you would expect, eastward at about 1 inch a year and rotating clockwise. And the African plate is moving to the northeast at about 8/10 of an inch or 2.15 centimeters, meeting the Eurasian plate in the Mediterranean and then interacting with those other plates on its eastern border. So each of these plates and their Atlantic Ocean extension, you could say, are moving away from the center of the Atlantic. It's continuing to grow, but some of them, especially Africa and South America, are interacting with numerous other plates on their borders. So one place, though, that we do get activity, seismic activity, is in the Caribbean. There are 3 little areas. This is one of them. And the Caribbean plate's kind of a cool thing. Scientists are not even agreed where it was formed. They agree it was formed at the breakup of Pangea, but whether it was formed where it is now or in the Pacific is not agreed on. And those are the 2 primary theories. If it formed in the Pacific and then moved eastward into its current position, that would help explain some of the accretion if it's subducted under the South American plate. There's accretion on the northeast corner of the South American plate. So that could help explain some of that, but it's not absolutely clear. Currently, it's moving about 2 inches a year eastward relative to the North and South American plates, but it's a little different because they're each moving differently. And most of the seismic activity is that blue line with the triangles on the eastern edge where the Atlantic lithosphere, both from North America connection and the South America connection, are subducting under that plate with all of the attendant trenches and earthquakes and volcanoes. So this is a bathymetric of the Lesser Antilles. If you start from where you see the purple in there, that's right near Puerto Rico. So the trench starts north of Cuba and curves all the way around to the Lesser Antilles. And the section near Puerto Rico, called the Puerto Rican Trenches, is the deepest part of this. And it is 27,480 feet deep, 5.2 miles, 8.4 kilometers deep. And as it subducts, all of those wonderful things happen. We get accretion all across that. In the north, it's about 3.2 miles thick, the accretionary wedge. In the south, there's more sediment because of the Orinoco River. So that accretionary prism is 12 miles thick or 20 kilometers thick. You can see the 4 stars. Those are the 4 biggest earthquakes since 1950. And if you look at the cross section, you can see the closer they are to the trench, they tend to happen right along that interface. So they're shallower when they're closer to the trench and get deeper as they occur farther west. And that leads to different experiences. So the biggest one that has happened here since 1950 is a 7.1. And then the volcanic arc is the islands. So the islands are volcanoes on a volcanic ridge. And you can see that that also changes in distance. So in the north, the angle of descent of the Atlantic lithosphere is steeper, and so it reaches that 100 to 150 kilometer depth closer to the trench. And in the southern part, it's a shallower descent, so it takes more miles to get to the depth. All right, so that's that. We've got whoops. There we go. Our second active area, the famous South Sandwich Islands, or not so famous. They're almost on the Arctic Circle. And it's a lovely active area, but you can see here, if you look on the right-hand side where the trench is, and those other layers between the trench and the arc of volcanoes are that accretionary prism. And we'll look at a little diagram. So the pink one is the South Sandwich Island Plate. That blue line with the triangles, that's where the subduction's happening from the South American Plate, which wraps around it. And then you can tell these other plates moving in other directions. The South American Plate, sort of west-northwest. The South Sandwich Island Plate going east, so they are definitely interfacing there. And then the Scotia Plate, which is moving less eastward than the Sandwich Island Plate and the Shetland Plate. Here, the Antarctic Plate is moving northward relative to the South Sandwich Island Plate. But remember, it's round down there, so it's by the time you get over to South America, it looks like it's moving in a slightly different direction. Just a quick bathymetric, which really allows you to see that trench and some of these different plates interacting. Our last active area has only recently started being investigated, and whether it's important and indicative of something new happened is not yet determined. So if you look just outside of the Straits of Gibraltar, in the Atlantic Ocean, there are some islands and ridges there where Madeira and the Azores, and there's some recent activity going on there, but what's going to happen with that, we don't know. So in all of the Atlantic, we only have these 3 small areas of lots of seismic activity. The Lesser Antilles Arc on the eastern edge of the Caribbean Plate, what's called the Scotia Arc on the South Sandwich Island Plate, and what's this current study region. So all, it's relatively quiet because these borders between the Atlantic Ocean Plate and the continental plates are not active. They're just moving together, which is really unusual because usually those oceanic plates subduct. So what will happen is not known. The currents could shift, and maybe those continental plates will start moving inward again, which is what some geologists project, because there seems to be a pattern of supercontinent formation and breakup, and formation and breakup. But other scientists say, no, the Atlantic's going to keep getting bigger, and all those continental masses will meet on the other side in the Pacific, which is currently getting slightly smaller. We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. We are going to go straight into Q&A. Oh, man, look at those hands. All right. Please keep your questions to a question, and then we're going to come around with the mic and hand it off to you, Jenny. Yeah, you can. Just, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Jenny. So at the trench, one would expect that the additional weight of the water would force water down into the mantle. Is the viscosity lower in the mantle under the trench?
The viscosity of the mantle, not that I know of. So the water seems to come primarily from the breakdown of the crystalline structure of the plate when it gets to at least 100 kilometers depth. And that the ocean water is not forced into that trench interface that I know of.
When you put the pieces back together again and create Pangea again.
Yeah.
Okay. This is one side of the sphere, right?
Yes.
What's happening on the other side of the sphere?
Ocean.
I've worried about that all my life.
Mexico City and central Mexico have volcanoes and earthquakes, but I didn't see a plate, zigzagging through that area.
So I don't know about the geology of Mexico within. I know that these maps do not show all the plates because, say, for example, in Indonesia, there's about 15 plates. So there's lots of smaller ones, and it may be there, or it could be that they're hot spots like Hawaii, that's volcanic activity, but they have earthquakes too, you say, that there's seismic activity that's not associated with tectonic plate borders. I just don't know. I haven't ever researched that. Is it from the Cocos Plate in Mexico City? Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. I mean, I know the Cocos Plate is there, but I haven't looked at how it affects Mexico. Okay.
Could you speak to gravitational anomalies under the crust and how those relate to all of this?
Okay. What I've learned about them, and I haven't looked a lot, is that they are probably from the impact with a moon, a large asteroid or something that created the moon. And that that parts of it, when it crashed into the Earth, the moon was thrown off and eventually solidified, and some other parts of that asteroid sank into the mantle and are sitting basically on the outer core. And because they're different from anything else. That is the one theory I've heard of their origin, is that they are remnants of the asteroid impact that also created the moon. But beyond that, I don't know.
So what's going on with that part of Africa that seems to be breaking off?
Okay, so that is mostly from its interaction. The Arabian Plate is moving east faster than the African Plate, and the African Plate is moving kind of northeast, and the Arabian Plate is moving kind of east, and you're getting that fissure. So and presumably there's magma that's coming up and helping then push them apart. But that's the extent of what I know about it is those plates are separating, and that rift is getting measurably bigger. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Let's give her another hand and round of applause there, guys. Okay, before we close up with our final songs, I'm going to read some announcements. Today, happening right now, is Fort Bend Pride Festival. It's happening at the Fort Bend Fairgrounds. That's over in Rosenberg. So after we finish potluck, why not consider going down there if that's in your direction? The monthly midweek late lunch brunch, tongue twister, it happens at Nico Nico. It's going to be on Thursday, August 14th from 1 to 3. Join in for a late lunch and Gab Fest. Blues Night, hosted by our wonderful Will Judy, will be on Thursday, August 21st, from 8:15 to 11:15 at the Big Easy. No cover, just great tunes. We're going to be having Oasis is going to be having a blood drive here, I believe, on Sunday, August 24th. The Gulf Coast Regional Bus Blood Center bus will be here. We've had it here before, so you're just going to go out there during the show. Just schedule a time on their website. We'll have that link up on the meetup. That way it'll be nice and scheduled. Hold on, I have one more thing here. The Oasis Book Club will be meeting on Wednesday, August 27th from 6:30 to 8:30 to discuss The Sum of Small Things by Elizabeth. I'm not even going to try to read that last name. On Wednesday, August 27th from 6:30 to 8:30 at Cafe Express. Next week, we'll be having Mark Towns doing our live music. Andy Boyd, our community's Andy Boyd, will be presenting Understanding Einstein's Theory of Special Relativity with No Math. Lunch will be at Katz's Deli. Now, I'm going to call for community members if anybody has any news or anything they'd like to share in their life happening right now. Yeah. Come on up. This is Conrad, guys.
So hi, my name is Conrad. I've been a member of Oasis since I was like, 13, yeah, kind of. But I turned 24 yesterday, and this talk today reminded me why I love Oasis so much. Because, first of all, very thoroughly researched. I took 2 semesters of geology when I was in college. Amazing talk. But speaking of degrees, I'm going to be moving away from my master's degree very soon in California. But I want to thank Houston Oasis for being just an excellent community to be around, especially because it's a community not necessarily tied to religion. We sit here, we discuss interesting things happening in the world, interesting things that have happened, and things that we can do to better our overall world. And that's what I really like about Oasis. It's about bettering the world through our knowledge and our ability to change it. So thank you, Houston Oasis. You have been an oasis for me.
Thank you, Conrad. We're all going to miss you, man. Okay, we have potluck afterwards, guys. So we're going to put up chairs, but don't put up all of them, and then we're going to roll out the tables. But if you are leaving, thank you so much for attending. We're going to hope to have you next week. Thank you very much. Go in peace. Oh, no, my God. Oh, thank you. We're going to hear our last 2 songs from our musicians. Joseph and Kobe. Hey, take it away, guys. Thank you.
This is my first time here. This is really wonderful. Thank you all.
I mean, we don't have to.
We don't have to play. This is really wonderful. Thank you all. It's being my first time. Really great. Thank you.
Yeah, I was happy to bring them. Like, it's really cool. You're gonna like it. It's might learn something, and it's always fun to do a gig like this where people are really open to original music as well that you might not have heard before. You'd be surprised how rare that is. This is a tune that I wrote after, experiencing strain in several relationships over politics, I guess. And it's really just kind of I imagine a dystopian future where, if current trends persist, people become even more individually isolated. And so this is a fictional town where everyone's their own individual tribe and they can't agree on any basic facts whatsoever. So they can't agree on the name of the town. It's a town without a name. And also, I think I can get away with this song here using words like Orwellian and paradigm. I get that criticism of my lyrics a lot, and it's always like, well, it's just not done. And I'm like, that's not a way to come at me. That just makes me want to double down. Over the hills and past the evergreen, there's a place where we can go. We want to live in perfect harmony with the things we think we know. Magic spells and broken wedding bells, and the river tells a summer tale. A change in times and loaded nursery rhymes fan the flame in the town without a name. And all of the people live alone and free. Isolation so extreme. Carefully choosing their own paradigm and their own Orwellian dream. And magic spells and broken wedding bells, and the river tells a summer tale. A change in times and loaded nursery rhymes fan the flame in the town without a name. Isolation so extreme when you become your own regime of tyranny, so hard to see what's real. Magic spells and broken wedding bells, and the river tells a summer tale. A change in times and loaded nursery rhymes fan the flame in the town without a name. That's on Spotify and all your Apple Music and all your favorite music platforms, streaming platforms.
None of my stuff is anywhere. This song is called It Takes Storms.
It's the only time you'll ever get to hear it.
Late at night when the edges catch you dreaming, and all your scheming, the whispers make a sound. Lay it out, set the time for your heart's retrieving. You start believing you never lost the ground. You've been making a song with the melody of our choices and the language each for our voices, one by one. When everything crystallizes, you're falling on the sword. A road that mystifies is supposed to be its own goddamn reward. All your blessings, they've been laying low in a ghost town. When they come round, you send them out to sea. Sing about them in a shanty like a broken sailor and seek their favor, but they won't let you be. Evening tides don't eat at the earth, and the sand don't leave with the surf. It takes storms. Everything crystallizes, you're falling on the sword. A road that mystifies is supposed to be its own goddamn reward. 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 It takes storms.
Thanks,
Joseph
Colby.
Crump and Colby Beserra, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thank you for not all just bolting as soon as I said that the show was over, but now you may go. Reminder, don't put up all the chairs.